A poor student married a 71-year-old wealthy woman. Just 7 days later, he was shocked to realize the truth. The sky was gray over the small college town in Texas. Rain slicked the streets as Mark Davis trudged along the sidewalk, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his face etched with worry. At 23, he was balancing his final year of law school, a part-time job, and a mountain of debts left behind by his late father. Each day felt heavier than the last. His phone buzzed in his pocket. "Mark Davis speaking," he answered. A composed, authoritative female voice replied, "Mr. Davis, this is Eleanor Brooks. I'd like to meet with you. It's regarding your financial situation." Mark frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "How do you know about—" "I know enough," she interrupted smoothly. "Meet me at Brooks Bistro." 7 p.m. "It's important." The line went dead before Mark could respond. Confused but intrigued, he went. Rain poured harder as he arrived at the cafe, his jacket barely keeping him dry. Inside, warm light and the aroma of coffee greeted him. At a corner table sat Eleanor Brooks, a striking woman with perfectly styled silver hair and a tailored suit radiating wealth. "Mark," she greeted, gesturing to the chair opposite her. Her tone was calm, commanding. Mark hesitated but sat. "Mrs. Brooks, what's this about?" "Straight to the point." "Good," she said, sipping her tea. "Mark, I know about your debts, the ones your father left behind. I know you're barely scraping by. I'm here to offer a solution." Mark narrowed his eyes. "And what would that be?" She set down her cup, her piercing blue eyes locking onto his. "Marry me." The words hit him like a stone. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," she said, steady and cold. "This isn't about romance. It's a business arrangement. I'll pay off your debts, secure your future. In return, you'll be my husband." Mark let out a disbelieving laugh. "You're serious? Why me? You don't even know me." "Exactly," she replied. "You're young, unattached, and desperate enough to consider this." "I don't need love, Mark. I need a companion, someone to share my name and estate. Think of it as a contract." Mark shook his head. "This is insane." "What's in it for you?" Her voice softened. "I've spent my life alone. I have no children, no family. I want companionship, even if it's just for appearances. And I want control of my legacy." A husband will solidify that. Mark stood abruptly, chair scraping. "I can't. I need time to think." "Of course," she said coolly, "but don't take too long. My offer won't last forever." That night, Mark told his mother, pale and tired from medical treatments, she listened carefully. "Mark," she said softly, "I know it sounds unthinkable, but if she's willing to help, maybe it's worth considering. You're asking me to marry a woman I don't love, just to solve our problems?" he asked, torn. "I'm asking you to save yourself," she whispered, "to save us." The next morning, Mark returned to the bistro. Eleanor didn't look up from her tablet. "You've decided?" she asked. Mark took a deep breath. "I'll do it." A faint smile touched her lips. "Good. The arrangements will be made immediately." 1 week later, in a quiet courthouse, Mark stood in a suit Eleanor had bought him. The ceremony was small, witnessed only by her lawyer and a notary. As the vows were exchanged, unease gnawed at him. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Eleanor turned to him with a thin smile. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Davis." The gates to her sprawling estate creaked open as Mark's cab rolled up the long driveway. The mansion loomed ahead, with towering columns and lifeless windows. Inside, Eleanor greeted him with polished formality. "Welcome, Mr. Davis. Dinner is at 7. His room was lavish, antique furnishings, king-sized bed, floor-to-ceiling windows, but cold, untouched by warmth. At dinner, Eleanor sat at the far end of a massive table, dressed impeccably in pearls. "I trust you're settling in," she said. "This place is overwhelming," Mark admitted. "You'll get used to it," she replied. Then, with a strange smile, added, "Or you won't." Her words lingered, unsettling him. When he asked about her late husband, her knife paused mid-cut. He was a businessman. Like your father, she said. Her tone darkened. Not all encounters end well. Mark's pulse quickened. What do you mean? Her eyes flashed. Unfinished business has a way of lingering. You'll understand soon enough. That night, the house felt suffocatingly quiet. Locked doors lined the halls, their brass handles gleaming in dim light. The staff avoided his eyes, whispering when they thought he wasn't listening. Why him? He overheard one night. She never does anything without a reason. He'll figure it out eventually. They always do. The longer Mark stayed, the heavier the unease grew. Eleanor's offer had saved him from debt, but each day it felt less like a rescue and more like a trap. Mark noticed Eleanor's desk. Papers were scattered across its surface, and among them lay a small, ornate key. It gleamed under the desk lamp, its intricate design catching his eye. He looked around the room. No one was there. His heart pounded as he reached for it. The key was heavier than he expected, cold against his palm. Mark's mind raced. Could this belong to one of the locked doors? Glancing toward the hallway where shadows danced against the walls, he slipped the key into his pocket. That night, lying in his luxurious yet suffocating bedroom, Mark turned the key over in his hands. 1,000 questions swirled in his mind, but one stood out above all. What was Eleanor hiding? And why had she really chosen him? The mansion was shrouded in stillness as Mark crept down the hall. The key weighed heavily in his pocket, its surface pressing against his thigh. His pulse quickened as he approached the door he had noticed days earlier, its ornate handle faintly glowing in the moonlight streaming through the windows. With a final glance over his shoulder, he turned the key. The soft click echoed through the silence, sending a chill down his spine. Slowly, he pushed the door open. The room before him was a time capsule, frozen in another era. Dusty furniture and faded wallpaper surrounded him. Photographs in tarnished silver frames lined a table. Images of Eleanor as a young woman, a man who must have been her late husband, and another couple he didn't recognize. But it was the stack of papers on the desk that drew him closer. As he flipped through them, his eyes widened. They were legal documents, failed business deals between Eleanor's husband and Mark's father. A particular letter, written in sharp, slanted handwriting, accused his father of fraud. You ruined everything. My family was left with nothing because of your lies. Mark's breath caught when he reached the final page, a marriage license. His name and Eleanor's were written in bold print, dated weeks before their wedding, far earlier than he had known. On the desk lay an old leather-bound diary. Hesitating only for a moment, Mark opened it. The entries were Eleanor's. They revealed a chilling plan to trap him in a marriage designed to settle old scores. One line burned into his mind. I will take everything from him, just as his father took from me. He will be my pawn. Mark froze. The door creaked behind him. Enjoying yourself? Eleanor's voice was icy, slicing through the shadows like a blade. He spun around, guilt and fear etched on his face. Eleanor, You thought I wouldn't find out? Her silhouette filled the doorway, sharp against the dim light from the hall. Curiosity killed the cat, Mark. What exactly do you think you're doing? His voice trembled but carried defiance. Why did you really marry me? Is this about my father? Some kind of revenge? Eleanor's eyes hardened, her polished mask beginning to crack. It's not your place to ask questions. Just do what you're told, and you'll leave this marriage better off than you started. Isn't that enough? Mark's fists clenched. Enough? You've lied to me, manipulated me. This isn't a marriage, it's a trap. Eleanor's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. A trap? Maybe. But you should have thought twice before signing those papers. You're just like your father, blind to the damage you cause until it's too late. Mark glared at her, the weight of his father's sins pressing down on him. If you hated him so much, why punish me? I had nothing to do with what he did to your family." For a long moment, Eleanor was silent. Then she turned sharply. "You're in over your head, Mark. Stay out of matters that don't concern you." Her footsteps faded into the hall, leaving him shaken. That night, Mark lay awake, her words echoing in his mind. Why had she gone to such lengths? Was it truly only revenge? His thoughts were interrupted by the faint sound of Eleanor's voice drifting from her study. Creeping closer, he pressed his ear against the door. "Make sure the transfer is complete," she ordered, her tone sharp and commanding. "We can't let him back out now. Time is running out." Mark's blood ran cold. Whatever Eleanor was plotting, he was trapped deeper than he ever imagined. The once grand estate now felt like a gilded prison, its luxury hiding sinister secrets. Desperate, he turned to the one man who might help, Mr. Harris, the head butler. "Mr. Harris," Mark whispered, "I need your help. Something isn't right here." The older man studied him with a steady gaze. "I wondered how long it would take before you came to me." "You know something," Mark pressed, "about Eleanor." About all of this, Mr. Harris hesitated, then spoke quietly. "You're not the first young man to be drawn into her world. She is clever, ruthless, and patient. My advice? Watch your back." Mark's chest tightened. "Then why are you still here if you know what she's capable of?" A flicker of regret crossed the butler's face. "Some of us don't have the luxury of walking away." That was all Mark needed to hear. He resolved to find a way out. Reaching out to his old friend Peter, a lawyer, he asked, "Hypothetically, if someone signed a contract under false pretenses, could it be voided?" Peter frowned. "Hypothetically, yes, but you'd need evidence. Why? Are you in trouble?" Mark forced a smile. "Just a class project. Thanks." But it wasn't a project. It was survival. Late one night, while Eleanor was away, he returned to her study. Among her letters, he found one addressed to his father. The words seared his mind. "You left us with nothing. My husband's heart couldn't bear the stress. He is gone because of you. I will make your family pay." It was clear now. Eleanor's obsession was born from pain, loss, and vengeance. But Mark wasn't about to let her win. He began mapping escape routes, desperate to leave the estate. But Eleanor's instincts were sharp, and she was already watching. She found him in the breakfast room, her icy presence cutting through the quiet. "Eleanor, you've been busy, haven't you?" Mark froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. "I don't know what you're talking about." Eleanor smiled coldly. "Don't play coy with me, Mark. If you think you can outsmart me, you're mistaken. I've dealt with far craftier opponents than you." Mark swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. "I don't know what you're accusing me of, but I'm not doing anything wrong." Eleanor leaned closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "If you betray me, you'll wish you hadn't. Remember that." She straightened and left the room, leaving Mark to grapple with the growing realization that staying meant surrendering his life to Eleanor's twisted plans, but escape might be even more dangerous. Later, in the library, the weight of discovery pressed heavily on his shoulders. The private investigator he had hired in secret had just left, confirming the devastating truth. Eleanor's late husband, Harold Brooks, had been swindled by Mark's father in a fraudulent real estate deal that stripped the Brooks family of their fortune. Harold's death from a heart attack soon after was the final blow, leaving Eleanor embittered and determined to exact revenge. Her proposal to marry Mark had never been about love. It was a calculated move to make his family suffer, even from beyond the grave. Mark clenched his fists. How could she blame him for his father's sins? Yet as much as he resented Eleanor, he couldn't deny the pain that had driven her. That evening, he met his law school friend Peter, in secret. Together, they compiled the evidence from Eleanor's office and the investigators' findings. Among the documents they uncovered were Eleanor's current dealings, shady partnerships, falsified reports, all designed to rebuild her empire at any cost. "Mark," Peter said gravely, "this is enough to take her down. But if she realizes you're onto her, there's no telling what she might do." Mark nodded. "She's already done enough damage." It's time to end this. The next morning, Mark waited in the grand sitting room, the evidence secured in his bag. When Eleanor entered, icy composure intact, he stood to face her. "We need to talk." "Is that so?" she asked, her tone clipped. Mark pulled out the documents. "I know everything, about my father, about Harold, about what you've been doing to rebuild your fortune." For the first time, Eleanor faltered. Her eyes flicked to the papers in his hand. "You've been snooping again, haven't you? Do you even understand what your father did to my family?" "I understand he wronged you," Mark said, his voice rising. "But what about the people you've hurt along the way? What about me? I didn't deserve this." Eleanor's jaw tightened. "My family deserved to lose everything? My husband deserved to die of stress and heartbreak while your father lived comfortably? Don't talk to me about fairness." Mark's hands shook as he held up the evidence. "Revenge won't bring him back, Eleanor. It won't undo what happened. You've spent your life consumed by hatred. When does it end?" For a fleeting moment, Eleanor's shoulders sagged. Her eyes softened. "You remind me of him, you know? Harold, that same fire, that same stubbornness. I didn't expect to feel anything for you, Mark. But here we are." Mark hesitated, caught off guard. "If you really feel that way, then stop this. Let it go before it's too late." Before she could respond, the sound of tires crunching on gravel echoed outside. Moments later, uniformed officers entered, followed by Peter. "Eleanor Brooks," one officer announced. "We have a warrant for your arrest. You're charged with fraud and conspiracy." Eleanor's face hardened. "You called them." Mark met her gaze. "You left me no choice." As the officers led her away, she turned back one last time. "You may think you've won, Mark, but revenge isn't so easily undone. Be careful it doesn't consume you too." Months later, the gavel struck in court, ending Eleanor Brooks's trial. Mark watched from the back row. His testimony had helped reduce her sentence, not out of sympathy, but out of understanding. When Eleanor turned briefly to meet his eyes, there was no coldness, only the faintest trace of regret. Days later, Mark returned to the estate. Once intimidating, the house now felt empty. The lawyer handed him the deed, along with a letter in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. "It was never about money, Mark. It was about closure. Harold deserved justice, but I lost sight of what mattered. You reminded me of something I thought I'd forgotten, the ability to move forward. This estate is no longer a monument to my pain. Use it well." Mark sold the estate and used the proceeds to pay off his family's debts. With the remainder, he established the Harold Brooks Scholarship Fund, a tribute to the man caught in the crossfire of two families' feud. Back at law school, Mark found purpose working with legal aid, helping others who had been wronged. One autumn afternoon, a letter arrived. Eleanor's handwriting. "For years I believed revenge would heal me, but revenge is its own prison. Your kindness showed me forgiveness is strength, not weakness. Thank you for breaking the cycle I could not." Mark folded the letter and slipped it into his pocket. A year later, he stood at the scholarship ceremony, speaking to a group of students. This fund isn't just about money. It's about creating opportunities. It's about turning pain into purpose. As he left the ceremony, Mark looked up at the clear sky, the weight of the past finally lifting. Eleanor's letter remained in his pocket, a quiet reminder of redemption, justice, and the power of forgiveness.